Really good to see everyone here. Can I please ask Roy Willis, if possible, can you start us with an opening karakia, Roy? Right, moving on to, I believe, Councillor Dow has the words of wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah, morning everyone. Very short and sweet. Hey? Don't try and find problems to fit solutions. Do try and find solutions for problems. That's my words of wisdom for the day.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And the reason why Councillor Dow did the words of wisdom this morning is because we have an apology at the moment, I'll say, for lateness for Councillor Christensen. But at this point, I'm not quite sure whether she'll turn up or not. But at this stage, it's to be late. If I could have a seconder for that, please. Seconder Councillor Dow, all in favour? Thank you. I don't believe there's any late items for the agenda. Any councillors feel the need to declare a conflict of interest in any agenda items in today's meeting? No, thank you. Confirmation of minutes, and do we have a date for those minutes? They'll be in here, eh? That's right. 16th May. Do I have a mover and a seconder for those, please? Moved Councillor Tamaki, seconded Councillor Hughes. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Any matters arising from those minutes? No, thank you, councillors. Receipt of minutes. Again, I don't have the details in front of me on that one. 16. Ōtorohanga Community Board. Mover and a seconder for the receipt of those, please. Councillor Hughes, Councillor Dow. All in favour? Carried, thank you. And the minutes of 1 June, which I assume is the Kāwhia Community Board. Do we move and a second of those? Councillor Jeffries, seconded Councillor Dow. All in favour? Carried, thank you. I don't believe we have anybody for the public forum today. My verbal update of what I've been up to over the last month. Following our last council meeting, I attended the Mayoral Forum on the 22nd of May, and following that Mayoral Forum meeting, we went and had lunch with the iwi chairs of the Waikato Tūpo catchment. That's around the Three Waters Leadership representation group going forward. So it's just really familiarising ourselves with each other. A bit of a korero over lunch at that point. Then on moving on to the 24th to this 27th of last month, I was in Wellington, initially for discussing Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, local government relationship, followed by a combined sector meeting. And then on the Friday night, I stayed down in Wellington for the New Zealand Farm Environment Trust Awards, which again, for anybody who's involved, especially in Ōtorohanga, involved in the rural community, it was incredibly exciting and rewarding to see the calibre of contestants and the work that's been done around the country. It's really quite inspiring as a farmer to know this is going on. I'm going to put a date beside this. CE review with Greg Timms. I had a learning about working with charities on June the 1st on a Zoom meeting, Friday the 2nd. I had a Mayor's Task Force extraordinary meeting. Tuesday the 6th, what has been up until now my regular Mariapoto FM catch-up once a month, but now Timiri's left there. I believe that's come to an end, unless something surprises me. Wellington the 7th, 8th of May, I was down with Mayor's Task Force for Jobs again in Wellington, then Festival for the Future, and then met with MSD as well while I was down there. I've had a whole lot of farm meetings. I was in Te Awamutu on Saturday the 10th for the first 15 reunion of the early 1980s. I aspired to be in the first 15. I never made it past the under 8.5 stone team, so never quite made it to that. So it was great to be invited along to be the MC in an event where what was one of the top 4 high school rugby teams in New Zealand back in the early 80s, which when you think about the calibre of high school teams around New Zealand at this stage, there's no way Te Awamutu would feature in that sort of equation now. In fact, one of the most capped players was Rob Gordon, who played for the All Blacks, went on and played in France. He had over 90 games for the first 15 in Te Awamutu, which is quite pretty incredible when you think about it. Monday the 12th, I was down at Te Kuiti Pa for Tama Potaka was down there, and the Waitoma District Council was presenting Rangatiki Pathways, which is another school intervention process to really educate and develop our rangatahi getting into employment post-school. And then, oh my gosh, MTFJ and local government catch up again on the 14th. And just a heads up on Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, and as you see in a lot of the updates I give you, there's been quite an involvement of me down at Wellington over years. I've been chair of Mayor's Task Force for the last 6 years, and I'm in the process of handing over to somebody else as we speak. I'm not sure who that somebody else is yet, and I've been trying for quite a while. And when you look at a Zoom meeting and everybody's averting your gaze, you know that the challenge of handing over that job is a bit tough. But I think I've got someone. Anyway, that's my update. Any questions what I've been up to over the last month? No? Cool. So I'd like to move that my report being accepted. Second to Councillor Jeffries. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. We're straight into public excluded now? Cool. Okay, I'll move that we move to public excluded part of our meeting. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Second to Councillor Dow. All in favour? Cool, carried. Okay, I'll move that we come out of public excluded. Second to Councillor Dow. All in favour? Thank you. Moving on to item number 49, that isn't it, which is the annual plan, if I'm correct. Please tell me if I'm wrong. No. Cool. Thank you, bring it.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So we're here to, with this report, adopt the annual plan and the rates resolution that goes along with it to set the rates for next year. I won't go through the resolution in detail at this point because it's a few pages long. And I won't go through the actual annual plan because that's even longer. I'll just take both of those as read. And I guess just see if there's any questions arising from the documents.
Open to questions, councillors. Councillor Jeffries.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Yeah, look, no further questions. I just wanted to say thank you to Tania and the team for responding so quickly to my list of queries yesterday. I appreciated that, and I've still got an issue with table 13, but I'll talk to you about that afterwards. But no, I think it looks very good, so thank you. Thank you for that.
Sorry, Brendan, I'm looking around.
Yep.
I'm seeing nothing happening at the moment. So I take it with no further questions that everybody's satisfied? Tanya wants to say something? Oh. Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, firstly before I the resolution, sorry.
That's what I would like to talk about, please.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, through you, Your Worship. So we need an amendment to the first recommendation in the report now that you've adopted the previous resolutions and public excluded. So we're proposing that it now reads, adopts the annual plan 2023-24, including the decision Council made today in public excluded to award the Ōtorohanga wastewater upgrade contract with extra funding of 1.35 million, excluding GST.
Yep.
So my question is, do we need to say in that resolution funded by loan, or is it enough to say that?
We said in the resolution,
And that's in the
public
yes,
excluded that
yeah.
it was. Do we need to put in the public? We did say in that resolution we were going to make that public after,
Yes,
so that will become public and say
Yeah,
that's
and it's
definite.
there in
So
the
I'd say
record.
we'll be fine to not
Yeah.
say
Cool.
that in this.
Sorry, we're building the plane as we're flying it here, but, yeah, okay, so we'll leave it at that. Are you happy with that extra? Yep.
And do we want to put anything, because there was a couple of spelling mistakes that Kit brought up in that email that I've fixed.
Okay, and we can say, adopt the annual plan, including the decision, funding excluding GST and any
Minor amendments.
minor editorial
Yeah,
amendments,
that's probably
yeah.
right,
Page, item 49, is there a page number? 35 it's meant to be.
Yeah. Start the resolution.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sure everybody's absorbed what Tanya's just said and can recite it verbatim. We have the recommendations in front of us. There
Yeah.
are 5 pages on. I'll take the recommendation as being read. I'd like to move we adopt the annual plan with those amendments that have been mentioned. I'm second of that, please. Second by Councillor Prendergast. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, Brendan. Thanks for the work that's got us there. Really, it's quite a nice place to be sitting in this chair in Ōtorohanga District Council with what we're proposing for our district this term. I mean, I know it's a bit above what the LTP was proposing, but considering it's so small under the current environment that we're in, I'm really, really happy. So thank you. Cool. Moving on to item 50, financial report for the month ending 31st of May, which is why you're still sitting there.
Exactly.
Page 124, councillors. Thanks, Brendan.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've just looked to the future, so now we're going to look to the past, to the end of May this year. So just as per my exec summary, so we're down on our operating revenue by $730,000, most of that in the other income, which is particularly around the regulatory side of things, and our capital expenditures under budget by 8.6, of which, as per the public excluded item 3 of that is we're about to carry over to next year for this, what we just talked about. So in terms of the comprehensive revenue and expenses, so overall net surplus is about 1.4 million over what we're budgeting to the end of May. Part of that is due to, as I say, the operating expenditure being down, operating revenue being down, sorry, but the operating expenses are down a lot more, $2.23 million, of which 1 million is operating employee expenses, and the other 1.2 is other expenses. So the employee expense is the same reason that it's been pretty much every month as I've done this report. We've got some vacancies. We've had trouble. Some of those haven't been filled, so they've sat there for a while. So we're just under budget. The longer they sit unfilled, the further under budget we get, obviously, because we've budgeted for a full year of salaries, but we're not paying any of it. We don't catch up or anything when we hire people. And then the other expenses, so there's the asset maintenance, rating maintenance, slightly down on budget there. The 600K for projects for the Ōtorohanga TCP is another big thing that was previously budgeted as a capital item, but is now treated as an operating item. So that's where there's a bit of a difference there as well. In terms of the statement of financial position, so our balance sheet, we're pretty healthy at the end of May. So working capital of $1.2 million, $3.8 million in current assets, and 2.6 in current liabilities. Not much else to say there. And the combined cost of service statement, which is basically the same information as the income statement, just as I say, sometimes we present it in a slightly different way, so we break it down into the different services. So overall operating revenue is 2.6 under budget, mostly due to the other general sources, which are the internal charges for staff time. So obviously because we're down in staff expenses, that means there's less staff time being charged out as well. So and in terms of the operating expenditure, we're about 4.7 under budget. Again, it's spread all over the place. Some of that is salary related, some of it's the other expenses, differences that I've talked about as part of the income statement. And in terms of the capital, like I've mentioned before, 8.6 million under budget. Some of those are going to be carried over to the new year. some items that didn't happen that were budgeted initially. And then some of the budgets are sundry, or if we need to, budgets. And so those obviously don't get spent if we don't need to spend them. And so that is the end of the financial report. So any questions?
Brendan, Tanya.
Oh, through you, Worship. So no, not a question, but just for transparency. This week, I signed paperwork around a short-term borrowing for $2 million, around a temporary cash flow issue that we've got, just in terms of the NKC developments, etc. So, in the capital works that we've had. So Brendan and Graham can probably explain it a bit better than that, but just so that you know that we've had to put that borrowing in place just as a temporary measure to get us through the next couple of months.
So we've taken a $2 million loan till September, 3 months. September. So it's a short-term loan. Part of that is we've got some big expenses coming through 20th today. Actually, we've got some big invoices that Mark's given us that we need to pay about 1.2 million just from that, plus all the other things. So we do a lot of that is roading stuff that's subsidised. We'll get subsidy back, but there's obviously a time delay in getting that back. With the rates going out early July, the money usually coming in, it's due by the end of August, but some people pay early, but just to make sure we've got sufficient cash flow to obviously keep all the lights on and pay all the staff, because if we don't pay them, they don't like to come in. We thought we'd take a little $2 million loan. NKC, we're predicting, or we've been told, is probably August we'll start getting the money back from them, if not all in one lump sum. So at that point, we'll have the money to repay that $2 million loan.
So if you recall, initially we expected repayment to come through earlier in the year around the NKC development, so we've extended that LGFA borrowing as well to accommodate the timeframes that we've now got from there. So there's several factors that have contributed to this, some of them outside our control, so that's why this is happening.
And I guess just with that NKC, I will point out, we haven't extended the term of his loan. His loan was always till November this year that he had to repay anyway, so he's still within his time frames. There's no issues there. We're just expecting the money a little bit earlier, and it didn't eventuate the way we thought.
Just to add, that just might be of interest to council, that with the LGFA now we can undertake bespoke borrowing. So we can, instead of getting a bank overdraft, we can have short-term borrowing, anything from 1 month to 11 months under very, very quickly as well, at much more reasonable rates than what we'd expect to pay for a bank overdraft. So for a situation like this, we're only borrowing for 3 months, just because just a short-term cash flow situation over the end of the financial year, it actually puts us in a quite a strong treasury position to be able to do that. So.
Yeah, thanks for that, Graham. That was probably my question, just the mere fact that you can go and borrow a couple of million on a short-term loan as bridging finance is quite special, to say the least.
For the record, I made Graham write me an email explaining it, so I have a record for all time.
Awesome. Councillor Jeffries.
Oh, thanks, Your Worship. Yes, that's just answered my question too, actually. I just wondered, what overdraft facility did we have? But obviously we don't need it if we've got this arrangement in place. So what was the interest rate, just as a matter of interest?
Off the top of my head, I think it was 5.8%. Yes.
It's about $29,000 for the
yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Through you, Your Worship. Is that facility a result of Ōtorohanga's treasury policy, or just the general nationwide facility?
Yeah, that's just I guess an option that's offered through the LGFA, so that's offered to all participating councils. And we've never really utilised it before, but I guess prior to being with the LGFA, we had I think a $2 million kind of facility with the BNZ, but you know, if we ever had to use that, it would have been at significant interest rates. Yeah.
Thanks, Graham. Have no further questions. We have the staff recommendation that the Ōtorohanga District Council receive the report titled Financial Report for the month ending 30th April 2023. Do I move and receive? I can move Councillor Jeffrey, second by Councillor Johnson. All in favour? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan. Item 51, roading activities update. I'd imagine that's a mixture between Richard and Mark, is it? Or someone's got to do it.
For some reason I thought the Three Waters was up next. I don't know, I've got the wrong run sheet, but doesn't matter. Oh. So I might just start and then hand over to Rich. Normally I would sit up here and give a capital projects report, but we've decided to split that out now into roading activity, community facilities activity and projects activity, so that we can just have a little bit more information presented to council. So Richard's here obviously presenting the roading activity report, and then we'll go through the projects and community facilities.
Good morning. So thanks Mark for chucking me in. I was expecting to be in the tail end of a couple of guys behind me, so I'll warm up the seat for them. All right, so to kick things off, let's start. This year's been pretty difficult in the roading space. Weather has been a real pain. In the executive summary, I've outlined that our total activity budget is 8.1 mil. We've managed to get through 7.5 in terms of activities, so that's pretty good going. Our real focus recently has been on investing in resilience, so that's culvert installations, renewals, and vegetation clearing and site benching, some of the items that were highlighted in previous council meetings. Positives with this, having that focus on it means that we can really get some productivity out of our local contractors by making sure that they've got clear instructions in front of them, that they're only focusing on culvert renewals or vegetation, so we're not kind of bouncing around doing stabilising repairs and doing something else. That's where it can get a little bit slow. With regards to capital projects, I've included our road maintenance contract because everyone likes to, that's on everyone's forefront, whether it's missing signs or site rails or any other activities across the district. So from a delivery point of view, I think we've done pretty well. We've seen some photos just before of the Honakiwi slip. We're benching out the toe currently, and we've hit some pretty solid rock, so that's good news for us actually. So we'll start looking at putting some mass blocks at the base of the toe and start building up from there. So actually it's going to be a good outcome for that site. The area-wide treatments, as mentioned, this year's been pretty hard to get the rehabs to a state of completion this year. So as of yesterday, we've put into what we call a winter holding period, where we've kind of highlighted the risk and said, look, we could go for a seal, but the likelihood of it unravelling and just being a mess, it's not something that we want to go for. So what we've done is up till now, we've done all the culvert upgrades, surface water channeling to get rid of the water out of the site, or at least flow it out of the pavement and build up some of the pavement and put it into an unsealed state. The contractor, ECB, they'll be monitoring and providing winter maintenance on site, and they'll be based off the current rates that we have with the maintenance contractor. So that's kind of how we're going to address those sites. Our plan is to come back in October, weather permitting, and that's when we'll kick it back off again and start the pavement. So it's 2 months of holding, and if there are any issues that come up, we'll definitely be. It's a daily monitor, and if there are any issues that come up, then we'll address it straight away. So in terms of success, we're about 60% through the project itself, halfway through the budget itself. We are expecting to have some minor cost fluctuations when it comes into a project that's delayed over 2 financial years. We've got commitments from the contractor that they'll keep the ceiling rate and the stabilising rate. So those are the two largest expenses for any of these projects. So any additional cost comes in as what we call traffic management. So when the site's delayed for weather, then we look at putting a variation in just to help look after the guys and keep the site open, keep it safe really. Reseal, so project that's 100% complete. So we budget utilise 1.6. Completed our practical completion drive overs on the 13th of June with Higgins. A couple of sites have been identified with some early but minor chip loss and early but minor bitumen rising. So this is not a problem at this stage. Their plan is to continue to monitor it over the next year, and if anything does become a major, then they address it. They're quite aware of what had happened or is happening on the on Honakiwi Road at the start, where it was a resealed site, and it has turned into a mess, and it's been identified as a potential rehab. District-wide line marking, so that comes in after the reseals. So they're done now, as it was 90% when this report was written. They're 100% complete. They come in on budget as well. Next one on the list, unsealed bulk metalling. So we haven't started the bulk metalling yet. That's more of a winter or a deep winter activity. So July, August is kind of when we do this, just to keep the dust and the sediment on the road, because it is a bit of a clay mix. So at the moment, our contractors are completing what we call our pre-overlay maintenance. So again, surface water channels, culvert upgrades, and they're due to start in July. So on program, our metal orders have been put through to the quarries, so we shouldn't see any delays on that space. 4.6, so urban footpath renewals. This one's probably been highlighted as a bit of a disappointment actually for our team this year. So we've had major delays through our tender Inframex. They believe they've had quite a large staff turnover down there, so for some time they'd had no project managers. Shouldn't be our problem, but that's just the story that we've had. So currently they're actually on the network today and this week to hopefully get through a decent amount of this program. However, it's unlikely that they will complete the scheduled activities before the end of the financial year. Streetlight maintenance and renewals. So this was an ongoing contract that wrapped up last year. It's just finished its defects liability period, and we're looking at, with the help of Robbie behind me, we're looking at putting out a new maintenance program and any renewals for them. At the moment, it's with the Lines Company. They've had their contract extended by another 6 months just to enable us to continue providing service across the network and respond to any issues or any faults. Our stormwater resilience program. So this is quite a large project. One of our other roading engineers in the team is leading. So we're looking at taking our worst what we call geo sites or our high risk slip sites as one layer of the map, and then we put like a catchment layer over top of that, and then we also have our third layer, which is where have we attended most, and that kind of creates hot spots that we go, okay, we should really be looking at addressing some of these sites. So we're not looking so much as the individual asset on the road, but more of the catchment areas. So we might be doing some renewals in one section of the road, but not the whole road. So at the moment, that's we've had the geotech report done. The water modelling, I believe, is like 80% complete. We're waiting for like the last detail to be released, and then we've got to do a little bit more work on our end with looking at the existing infrastructure. So depth of invert, for inlets and outlets, just to make sure that it all stacks up. This will then provide a next year's resilience program for culvert upgrades. Next on our agenda, low cost, low risk. So some of these projects are driven by you guys actually. Some of the constituents have risen issues across the district. We try and outfit it into our budget through scoped resilience projects. So a couple on our list are Limestone and Mirren Ave, which are two urban sites that are having minor stormwater upgrades and some pavement upgrades to help reduce flooding in town. Steel extensions. Early in the year we had Huiremu out to market to see how it would stack up. At our 2 council meetings ago, it was presented in front of you guys. The decision was not to award the tender, but reschedule and rescope to look at doing a more of a maintenance package. So early in the week, I caught up with Councillor Prendergast when we went over the site to make sure that we're on the same page around what we're looking at doing. We've invited Kathy to interact with her friends out there, and if there is any other items through their lens that they might want to add to the list, then we're definitely able to look at it. Speed management, Road Zero. So we are in the last week of our consultation. Rachel and myself have been out to all the schools now. We sent out an engagement letter at the start of the month saying, hey guys, out to market, please submit on it if you have any interest or any concerns. And then in the last 2 weeks, we've individually gone out there and completed a face-to-face consultation just to make sure that they're aware, and if they do want to submit on it, that now's the time. We've had some feedback, but we'll wait to the end of the week to really cast a lens on that. Following this, I've wanted to kind of add on a few items around opportunities, risks, and forward works planning. It's always, when you're doing a CapEx report, you kind of want to add these in. So opportunities. With wet weather, the opportunity here is we've managed to focus on wet weather activities like culvert cleaning, renewals, vegetation control, and unsealed road maintenance. Following this risks, so one of the ones that's kind of kicking around in the industry at the moment is the replacement of the current temporary traffic management standard called COPTM. It was last updated in 2019, and generally these standards last for a year. So as an industry-wide standard, it's not up to code. It hasn't been up to code for like the last couple of years. So there is a new standard that's unfortunately misspelled here. It's NZG TTM, which is proposed to be the new standard going forward. It's more intensive. That's probably the summarisation of it. We haven't seen it being implemented or being trialled in a district yet. We've seen it in urban environments through Auckland Traffic. Hopefully we'll see another smaller council similar to our space be able to trial it before it goes out to market or before it goes to an adoption space. Just wanted to highlight it as it's something to think about. There will be 2 guides that will be recognised nationally. This is one of them. This is the one that's proposed for more of a North Island space. And it's likely to have increased cost for operations across the board. That's the likelihood. Forward works planning. So early engagement is key for delivery. Our roading team and with the projects team behind me are discussing about our works that we're wanting to get out to market hopefully October next year, which is our rehab bundle, our street lighting bundle, and some other activities. So in terms of carryover, I might pass you back over to Mark because he actually had the meeting. He was in the room at the time. It sounds like it's a pretty confident meeting where Waka Kotahi or NZTA are pretty comfortable where we are today, what we're looking to carry over, and what our focus is on next year. Mark, do you want to?
Thanks, Richard. So I think the key there was
Sorry, Mark, can I just go back to a question of Richard on that NZGTTM?
Sure.
How could that make it even more harder than what it is now in terms of traffic management? I mean, what's the proposals there?
Yeah, without getting too much in, it's a pretty passionate topic, and without seeing a final or a finished plan from the industry space, what it looks they're closing the gap around centre delineation, so it's nearly doubling the amount of on-site infrastructure, so twice as many cones, twice as many signs. That's roughly, it's early, that's what it looks like. Hasn't been practiced, so from a desktop exercise, this is what it looks like. Until it actually gets tested in the field, then there'll be amendments, adjustments. So it's at its early state. This is not what the finished product is, but it's a highlight saying, holy moly, this thing is a lot larger than what the previous one was. Yeah.
Through you, Your Worship, is it true that Waka Kotahi are proposing that the default setting for roadworks now be that you close the road completely, rather and provide an alternative if there's an alternative route, rather than elaborate traffic management setups that cost a lot of money, delay people, and just cause people to die, basically on the side, you know, in their high vis gear? Because I mean, I've seen people run over people standing there with a stop go, like run over their foot. So it's kind of nasty out there. So it doesn't surprise me that this is happening, but isn't there a kind of move towards encouraging road controlling authorities in that to try and close off if you can?
Yep. So even with the current practice or the current standard, part of the risk management is, can you close the road? That's the first one. It's always the top of the list going, can you close it? Yeah.
Because that was, how long, that was closed for 4 or 6 months, wasn't it?
longer than was expected.
Yeah.
But it gave them complete useless site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think there's a couple more questions we'll hand over to Mark. So, Councillor Prendergast and Johnson, please.
Through you, Your Worship, these are national standards, aren't they? So they are compliance, and once those standards we comply. So we just have to take cost, the extra cost that's involved.
Yes, but I think this is, I'm not too sure on the governance of this new standard, as it's not delivered by Waka Kotahi. So it comes down to a council to council basis of do we go with a new standard, or in some of the other forums, some of the other districts and other road managers have gone, no, we are not adopting a new system, we're going to keep with Coptum as our standard. So as our own RCA, we do have that ability to make amendments to our own traffic management plans. As Mark mentioned, I think definitely with our larger projects, our preference is always to close the road. It keeps people a lot more safe, and it means that we can get the work done faster.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, just with regard to the stormwater resilience, the 2,000 culverts, are they extras, or are they just making them bigger?
Yes, so I think in the district we've
It
got...
seems like a hell of a lot of culverts.
Yeah, yep. So in the district we've got there's 8,500 total culverts. In the catchment areas we've got a list of 2,000 that have been identified for inspection, renew, review. Are they fit for purpose? So that's our short list. Well, not our short list. That's our working list, I'd say.
Oh, so you're just looking at them.
Yep.
You're not actually going to
Yeah. So
do anything with
Yeah, so
Where's
in between those the geo map, the water map, that's kind of what we've highlighted as like these areas are for investigation. We'll be investigated.
And one more, just with the bulk metalling, is that part of the rotation of metal roads that get get their due metalling when it's time, or is there some service requests from people who have required more metal on their roads? Or is there that ability for people to ring in?
Yeah, there's definitely availability to respond to service requests. So the unsealed metalling is part of a scheduled program. So yeah, if there are other sites that have been identified or requested, and we go out and view it and say, yep, that needs it, then we'll absolutely add it to the list.
Are there any that you've got like that? Or is it just your routine stuff?
At the moment, it's just the routine stuff.
Okay.
There might be, but not. I wouldn't know off the top of my head that we've added additional.
Yeah. I've spoken to you before about Penny Road. I'll make sure there's a service request if there's not one already.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I didn't recognise Turitea Road and Mangamahoe Road when I was reading through they come under the area wide. Yeah. So are we going to be doing some comms for residents who will now spend a few more months complaining about councils, their roadworks not being completed? I mean, everyone should understand why. But
Yeah, absolutely. So received our noticed engineer yesterday from the contractor that was outlining their plan and their program. From that, we'll put together some comms. I didn't want to fire out something too early without a little bit of detail to back up how we're going to look after the sites, but now we've got that, so we can definitely do that. Yep.
Thank you. I'm just curious, like on the corner of Ōtorohanga Road and Old Tilbury Road, there's like yellow no parking, being just painted, freshly painted. And like that was kind of put in years ago when we used to have a local sale there. And people used to park there and cause a traffic hazard. But just wondering whether you ever review that sort of thing, and do they just paint them because they've always painted them, or there's heaps of other places where you...
Yeah, to answer your question, it is just a paint over existing lines, so we don't think we've had any plan or any request to review our parking areas.
It just seems a waste of money now. But anyway. And there's just two other things. You said the speed management was finishing this week. I thought it was the 30th of June.
Yeah, next week, sorry.
Okay. And in the reseals, that was the last thing. Progress for Hipatia Drive under the rail bridge where there's all the potholes. Is that not going to get resealed? Resealed sort of finished, or is that something else?
Yes.
Countdown sort of.
Yes, that's definitely another project in itself. So what we've identified is we want to do a stormwater analysis on the recent upgrades there. I think recently there was at its worst, we've seen half a metre of water sitting under Hipatia Drive, which is not good at all. So we're in the process.
For years.
We want to figure out how we can make it better to get rid of the water before we do any paper repairs. That's basically what we'll do, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of quick questions, Richard. First, just want to say thank you for that report. I like the format of that. I think it's very, very easy to read, and the fact that you've got your budget plus actual and all that sort of stuff as part of your... Yeah, no, it's very good, so thank you for that. I just wondered, with the closure of State Highway, or pretty much the closure of State Highway, where they did that big slip and we used Ōtorohanga Road, has anyone looked at Ōtorohanga Road since? What's the condition of that now? Is it okay, or do we need to do any work on that?
So we haven't had any feedback from public highlighting any risks.
Right.
our maintenance crews that do the drive-overs also haven't highlighted any issues coming out of that. I spoke to Mark, or Mark actually highlighted this morning that might be one of the questions. So we had early indication from Waka Kotahi that if there were any issues, haven't been identified on Okapata from the detour from the works there, that they would look at helping out, but nothing's been highlighted, or nothing's been reported yet.
Okay, no, it's just the last time I drove it, there were some sections that were getting quite badly corrugated.
Okay.
So I guess that's just will be picked up as part of your maintenance. Yeah. Keith Abbott on Raglan Road rang up about the safety rails on Raglan Road that had suddenly disappeared, and he's of the view that someone's taking them for firewood. But have they been replaced yet?
No, either they have been replaced end of last week or early this week.
Yep.
Significant amount of stuff has been pinched out there.
Yeah.
So either someone's building some new dog kennels as well, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm not
some-
too sure, but
There's something dodgy going on, that's for sure. But yeah, okay, well that's just something perhaps we need to keep an eye on. Thanks for that. And it's just a general comment when we talked about road cones before. One of the problems that we had out there just recently out the Carnfield Way was some mindless idiots tearing up the reserve of Putin, but also interfering with the road cones. And I don't know whether you've been out there recently, but a number of cones have been smashed up, and there's just bits of plastic all over the road from the cones. And
is that the hit sticks or the actual cones?
I'm not too sure. It's
Okay.
just, yeah, and it's a bit round by Pooty there, by Bob McAllister's place. But the concern really is that, people interfering with road cones, they're put there for a reason. And I'm just a bit concerned that if that continues, it potentially is going to cause an accident of some sort. So I don't know what can be done about that, but is Waka Kotahi aware of that?
They're probably not aware of the cones being moved, but
Yeah.
definitely highlight that. So.
Okay, thanks. And the only other one was, if you could mention to them too, that at the top of the hill, as you turn off to go to Te Romoa Road, the section of the State Highway there, the seal's breaking up really badly on that corner, and something needs to happen there too, so if you could. Thanks very much for that. Good.
One quick one, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, just in support of Councillor Dow's comment about the Hui Putia Drive, the under the railway bridge. Why not? I mean, a lot of people are complaining. In your area, what about we reseal it and then work out to get it smooth? Then we can work out how we can pump the water away. Because otherwise, it might be like in its present state for a very long time.
Yep. So our plan was to actually do a stabilised patch underneath, which was going to be basically temporary or a winter holding. Fortunately, the weather just didn't play well for us to be able to get a chance to do something there and make it look nice. That's been probably our biggest hurdle this year with doing any pavement repairs or stabilising. We are playing around with the idea of getting some hot mix patching, which you can do during winter as well, so not temperature related, but it's basically finding the resource to be able to put something down there and do it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I just think it's a priority because exiting the supermarket, everybody's driving out there. It's a intense situation.
I suppose the other thing is trying to avoid the fix something, then dig it up again to fix the first underlying problems. So take that on board, then maybe do some small patching, but until we get that stormwater issue sorted, which is obviously causing the issue with the pavement, yeah, we'll probably just tread carefully in that space rather than do too much work that we'll end up digging up again, which looks great. Well, it's scheduled for next year. That's one of the projects here in that table, because this northern one will be addressed, and then we'll get probably into that construction season.
Back to the report, see the Richard or Mark. Councillor Ernest?
Yeah, I think it's up to Mark.
Yeah, I suppose it was just one of the things that was flagged through risk and assurance earlier on was giving early indication to council on carryovers. So we have put that in on all our reports today, what our projected carryovers will look like going into the next financial year, and we'll see for the roading budget, we're looking at carrying forward 2.5 million from the maintenance and capital deliveries sort of budgets, and the road to zero budget of 396,000. So we had a meeting with Waka Kotahi and discussed our program for next year and the ability to carry those funds forward, and it was a really good meeting, and our program has been supported, and those two tables there sort of give an indication of what we're going to be doing into the next financial year. Those numbers don't add up, as you'll notice, to the budget, but that's obviously, we don't want to get ourselves too finely. We've got to have a little bit of meat in it. So yeah.
Good. Look, thanks, Richard. Thanks, Mark. Sorry we ended up getting down to a service request level of the meeting. So my apologies.
10 minutes to adopt an annual plan next year and 5 hours on the roading update reports.
Thank you for your contribution there, Chief Executive. Just couldn't help yourself. Yes. So,
Highlights the interest, Tony.
yeah.
in that
So
activity.
yeah. So again. Okay, so we have a staff recommendation that the Ōtorohanga District Council receive the report titled Roading Activity Update for the month ending 31st of May. Do I have a move on a second for that, please? Move Councillor Dow, second Councillor Williams. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Moving on to item 52, Three Waters Activity Update.
Good morning again, Your Worship, councillors. This report provides an update on the capital projects for the period ending 28th of May 2023. If I could just speak to a couple of the big ticket items, and before I do, I'll reiterate my previous colleagues' comments about the impact of unseasonally wet weather on physical works when you're doing projects in ground. First item, the District Council wastewater upgrades, which were previously addressed, recommended for award at this meeting. That allows us to now take some pretty big chunks out of that program delivery. Also, the Council's joint contract with Waipā District Council and the water mains renewal. I was paying some attention, you would have seen the contractor up on State Highway 3 at the moment. Busy with works, so there's some significant progress going on there, and we're at this stage, I think, mobilising to site at Kapia in early July, first week of July. Over and above that, I'll take the rest of the report as read and open the floor to any questions.
Thanks, Robbie. Any questions, councillors?
Just in relation to the Kawhia one, will there be some consultation with the people along the Waiwera? This is the renewal water main, is it? You're
Yes.
talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So consultation with the people involved there?
Yes, certainly. The
Yep.
letter drops to all affected parties within the construction zones and where their services may be impacted. Yeah, there'll also be notice boards at each end of the sites for public information.
Sorry, Your Worship, just to clarify, so that's your expectation. You used the word consultation, and I'm just wanting to ensure that we're clear we're doing this work and it's information to residents that it's happening, what they can expect, that kind of thing. Is that what you were meaning, councillor? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's okay. I just wanted to check. We've already consulted on the project, so yeah.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks, Robbie. Yeah, everything else here is fairly self-explanatory. Any further questions, councillors? If not, we have the staff recommendation of the Ōtorohanga District Council received the report titled Three Waters Activity Report. move for a second for those, please. Councillor Prendergast, second Councillor Willison, all in favour? Carried. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Robbie. Thanks, mate. Moving on to item 53, Community Facilities Activity Update, and that would be Jared. Welcome.
Kia ora everyone, and through you, Your Worship, I'll take my report as read and I'll go through some of the major points through there. I'll go through and then we can open up for one or two questions.
Don't think that's your choice, Jared.
It was worth a try. So this report is not just capital, but a little bit on operational for the Community Facilities Department. There's been a few changes legislation-wise that a few of you have probably heard around the trade. So I'll go through those now and go through these major projects. So first of all, we've done pretty well with our capital projects this year. It was a bit of a slow start to the year. As myself, I was still looking after the water department as well at the start of this financial year. So it spread pretty thin, but we've, through the realignment, I think our engineering department's sitting in a really good spot at the moment with a lot of support now with the likes of Robbie's and our asset team. So we've really moved forward the second half of this year and got quite a few projects done. You would have seen a few things around town and on Facebook that have really ramped up at the back end of the year. And that was sort of the reason behind that. One of the big things to come out of this year is the new Ministry for the Environment released their new waste strategy. Now, when we went come to you with a report extending our current waste contract, part of the reason is that was forecast to come out. It really reiterates that we made a good decision there. All these changes now, we know where we're sitting, when they have to come in. We will align these in a new contract, which means everyone, as we go out to tender, will be pricing on these changes. We're not having to go to a contractor who's already doing it and ask for a variation, and you're kind of a little at their mercy when you do that. So I think that's really made a good decision from all of us in this room, and it'll really help us going forwards. So I'll go on to the changes that will directly impact us here at Council. So the first thing is they are going to a standardised curbside recycling collection, which means everyone across the country has to accept the same things at their curbside recycling, and you are not actually allowed to add to that either. That's all you can take. If you want to take anything else, it needs to be a separate service. It's not going to affect us too much. The only change for us is we'll need to add number 5 plastics to our plastic collection, but in a previous report you heard that our recycling now goes to the automated facility in Hamilton. So if 5s have been getting put in ours, they've been taking it anyway, because that facility takes number 5s from other councils anyway. That all has to be done before February 2024. Service-wise, not a big change for us, but advertising-wise, we have to make sure our website and all our advertising is up to date with the new standard. MFE will be sending out a pre-done package that we can use and just slap our logo on the top of it. So a lot of that work's been done. The biggest one for us will be food waste collections. Now there's 2 separate times for these food waste collections to be in place. There's 2027 and 2030. We are in the first tranche, which is 2027, because we are located within 150 kilometres of a food waste recycling plant that has the capability of taking our food waste. We have 2 available to us. One is Hampton Downs, which is a compost facility. The other one is Reparo, which is anaerobic digestion. So that will all get put into our new contract. There'll be a bit of talk around that as MFE's standards. We're only going to have to provide that service in Ōtorohanga. Everything else is outside that threshold of what they call an urban area. So that's our biggest thing there on our recycling stuff. Our pool contract is coming up for renewal in February. We've just started some work in the background there and start putting together a tender document that will need to go out shortly. Looking through past documents, it was a highly contested contract last time it was put out, so I expect it won't be much different this time. Keep moving down. Onto parks and reserves, where we've done a bit of an upgrade to the skate park. That was just a part of a project through our long-term plan, and we're just waiting on some parts to finish the second part of that, which is a quarter ramp at the top end to make it a lot more usable space for the kids. And if you've ever driven past there, it doesn't matter rain, hail or shine, there are people in there playing and running around. We carried out a sludge survey on Lake Huipatea. Turns out it's a very deep lake. So a 6-metre survey pole, they couldn't find the solid bottom. But there's also a fair bit of sludge in there, so we're working with contractors about how to lower that level. As a lot of you know, that lake is also used for our flood protection. It's the, you'll see it quite often rise and fall, which is all to do with our flood pumps and the level of the river. Support for Te Papa o Karewa, of constant consultation with Ngāti Hakairo, and they're currently working on a design of wooden poles, carved wooden poles, to really tie in with the area. It's sitting with Ngāti Hakairo at the moment for pricing. They have a carver in mind who has done a lot of other work for them out that area. And once they get that pricing, we'll then go into discussions on funding it. But there's no point entering those discussions until we actually have some pricing and see where that sits. So we'll keep you updated on that one. The Ōtorohanga Cemetery expansion works, you'll see those have started now and they're moving along nicely. And I'll move on to carryovers. So there is a budget there for cemetery driveway and fencing, and with the delayed start of that project, this is a carry-on from that, but it can't be started until the earthworks are completed. You don't want to do any work on a driveway when you've got a digger and tractor running all over it, so we're looking to carry that over to allow us to fence off the area, tidy up all the driveways and get ready to have it all set for the new expansion. Lowering of the library ceiling. If any of you have been in there, you see that high. It's very hard to heat, maintain fresh air. We've been out to a couple of contractors who've just been too busy to even give us a price. This was one of the projects that I got onto a little late as well myself, being busy. So we'd like to still do that project. As you've seen, we've given it a paint on the outside and it's looking really smart at the moment. Ōtorohanga Pool Complex, there was a budget set aside we had a report done on it and we just want to carry on with further maintenance out of that. We've done a few things, we want to do a few more, so we want to carry over the remaining budget just to keep upgrading some of the major things that were highlighted in there that need replacing. And there was $30,000 there for the council office exterior repaint. We held off that while we were doing the building alterations, and now with the tree gone out the front, and you'll see further down, one of our capital projects next year is the refurbishment of the courtyard there. And once we do that, of course, that is going to open up some of that building. We'd like to hold that repaint off till we do that and then freshen up that front as part of that whole project. So just if you look through the capital projects that have come out of all our long-term plans, the first one there you'll probably all be happy about is the replacement of the aircon unit for this room here. When we did this upgrade a couple of years ago now, I think, it was highlighted by our contractor that the outdoor unit is getting old and it was put into a long-term plan. Obviously the courtyard, there's a little bit of work out at the Kawhia Cemetery, just planned maintenance for the wall out there at the cemetery. We have some things that have come out of the town concept plan, feasibility assessment of a resource recovery centre, the feasibility study for the development of Huipatea Reserve, and a reserves management strategy which will encompass how we link all our parks and reserves. Then those all come out of our town concept plan. Another one that's fallen out, a big one, is the installation of a public toilet in Windsor Park, which has been a bit of a hot topic over the years. So I thought I'd highlight that for you there.
How did they get in there eventually, Jared? Because, I mean, it has been a hot topic and it's gone back and forward.
It was put in as a long-term plan project that come to council, and it just, you guys all signed it off and it came through.
I think at the time we painted a picture of our parks and reserves being more than just green spaces that we mow, but actually places where people come together, where we maybe have events and really kind of cool stuff happening on them. And it's sort of hard to do that when you don't have a public convenience there. So I think that was in the spirit in which council supported it.
Look, I think it's going to be a godsend for Windsor Park too, in terms of families having picnics here and the likes here.
Look, as the Jim Barker Memorial Playground success has been huge, it's actually lifted the numbers going to Windsor Park, as a lot of locals drive past and there's these out-of-town school kids, they just take their kids down to Windsor where it's a bit more quiet, which I've done myself. So I'll open up for any questions.
Well, thank you, Jared. Again, a good report. There's lots of good stuff to look forward to. Any questions, councillors? Questions? Oh, Councillor Williams.
At the risk of this being an almost service request, but it's not. So I already sought plastics 1 and 2, and I sought 5s and like plastics other separately. When you, as an out-of-towner, we have to bring it into town, and there's only one bin to put it in. So it all gets mixed back in anyway. So that's currently been taken away for an automatic filter for 1, 2 and soon to be 5. At what point do we, like, you can only put 1, 2 and 5 in here, and what happens to the other plastics? Is it all just landfill?
Yeah, it is landfill, so there's a lot of work going on trying to actually phase those plastics. The problem is there isn't a market for them. They cost too much to recycle, so there's not that rebate, so no one wants to do it if they're not going to make money.
So if it's all been mixed in at the minute.
Yep. It all gets mixed here, so it used to be separate when it went to the Taupo facility, because that was a manual sorting facility and it was a lot more work for the people on the line. But now with this automated system, as you'll see down there, it all goes into one bin, it goes down a line and it's separated. So that has been a change, but we haven't done too much advertising because we know there's a whole lot going to be happening towards the end of the year, and we don't want to confuse things by changing it in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, so at the moment I can still put all my plastics.
1, 2s and 5s.
Shouldn't be putting the others in there though.
No.
They should go in the bin. That's what I do. I separate my 1s, 2s and 5s.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them go in the bin. Unfortunately, yes, but that's where they need to go. Otherwise, it's kind of commingling with what's essentially rubbish.
There's a few 7s that, like, It's a lot.
No,
No.
no.
No, I'm just talking about the volume of, yeah, right, top.
Councillor Dowd.
Yeah, Jared, I was just a bit curious about the desludging of Lake Lupetia. If you do it, do you just put a big long-range digger in there and dig it up, or do you suck it out, or what?
No, so we've got a couple of options what we're dealing at, and one is muck biotics. So they actually shoot these in, they settle to the bottom and they aerate, sink into the muck and aerate, but we're just doing some pricing. So a long reach digger will probably cause too much mess, which would probably get a slap on the hand from Waikato Regional if we mix that up too much. So we've got to do it carefully without creating too much mess. So
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, no, thanks for that.
yep.
So it's a similar process to what we use in the wastewater treatment plant.
Oh, yes.
Just creating that enzyme to sort of eat away at the sludge. We have seen positive results in the plant with slightly different technology.
Right. Cool.
Thank you. We have the staff recommendation here that Ōtorohanga District Council receive the report titled Community Facilities Activity Update for the month ending 31st of May. Do I have a move and a second? Moved Councillor Hughes, seconded Councillor Prendergast. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, guys. Moving on to item 54, Kawhia Aotea and Ōtorohanga Rural Concept Plans. Ross.
Thank you, Worship. Morena koutou. First up, I just want to say I think we're getting some really great momentum happening with these projects. So that was demonstrated with the drop-in session at Kawhia over King's birthday weekend. So we had really good numbers. So as you will all know, I'm sure, we've got some follow-up sessions this week for the rural concept plan. So on Thursday, 10:30 in Arahina, targeting the Arahina and Naroma communities. And then on Saturday here in town at the Village Green, I'm looking at the weather forecast. It looks okay for Saturday. If not, we'll set up in the library annex and run it from there. So I just want to acknowledge too the immense amount of work that's gone into the communications and engagement plan and the program to support these concept plan projects. So Nadia, Helen, and also the support we're getting from Becca and our own consultants in the graphics and comms design space has been superb, and that's manifest itself primarily through the online presence. So you will see on our website that We in the Future Together, that will take you through to some pretty cool individual project sites. So there is an opportunity for anyone to provide feedback through the online survey. Your Worship, I will take the report as read, but I just want to highlight a couple of additional things. One is we had a great mana whenua hui, the second hui on Friday. Some really good kōrero discussion and conversation, and we were invited in the context of our developing partnership with mana whenua and maybe using these concept plan projects as a stepping stone to engage at a marae, at a hapu level. We've taken that on board. There will be some logistical elements that we will need to consider if we're going forward with that level of engagement, but certainly from the first hui and then again on Friday's hui, we are getting really good representation and engagement, particularly from the Kawhia Aotea mana whenua. So, and it was from those groups where this invitation was posed to us. The other thing is we're closing in on 200, we may have exceeded that, 200 individual pieces of feedback so far, and that's continuing to grow on a daily basis, and I expect that will start to ramp up again as a result of engagement this week. So that's really exciting. And then the last thing, I just want to update you that when you signed off in, I think, December last year with the overall project plan, we were aiming for an end of October adoption of these concept plans. We're having to push that out because it took a little bit longer to get connected with these two projects. So we're now looking at a December delivery and adoption of the concept plans. So happy to take any questions.
Cool, thanks Ross, and thanks Notes for the comms. Any questions of Ross, councillors? Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, just how's the advisory group going?
So we've got two advisory groups in addition to the mana whenua hui. So we've had one meeting of each group, and both were quite well attended. We appreciate that with the numbers of people that are on those groups, not everyone's going to be able to make the session. So now that we're coming through the first round of engagement, we'll go back to the advisory groups and look to meet again. So the plan is to feed back to those advisory groups the overall kind of themes that are coming through, the feedback, any issues, any concerns, as well as those aspirations and opportunities, and get further input from the advisory group. So remember, we're using the advisory groups as a bit of a touchstone point through this project, as well as the general community engagement and feedback that we're trying to get.
Cool, thanks Ross. There's no questions. I'm just looking while we had given this report. I was thinking back to the early engagement with the LTP, with the Buzzy Bee going around the district, and how far we've moved on in terms of the consultation and engagement with the district. So, probably on a personal note, just thank you for what you've done in terms of leading this journey for our council. It's really pleasing to see how far we've come and what you're doing in this space. So I really look forward to see what the results of this further consultation and engagement with the communities are on these concept plans. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'll just reiterate, this is 100% a team effort.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, we have a staff recommendation that the Ōtorohanga District Council receive the report titled Kawhia Aotearoa and Ōtorohanga Rural Concept Plans, Project Update June 2023. Move Councillor Johnson, second Councillor Jeffries, all in favour? Against, carried. Thanks, Ross. Right. Moving on to other business, we're on to councillor updates. So, just what you've been up to for council over the since last council meeting, Councillor Johnson.
Big zero from me this month.
Okay, good. Moving on, Councillor Prendergast. Thanks for it.
Yeah, reasonably quiet for me too. The 17th to 5th week of Auckland Country Development Trust meeting, the CE review that we all went to on the 31st, and then I met with Richard, Shayla and Ōtorohanga last Friday to review Three River Road.
Thank you. Councillor Tamaki.
Morena. I've done lots. I always do. So every second weekend we have kapahaka, and every Wednesday we have kapahaka. I attended a hui at Antiquity for the community around the safety of the community, and it was well attended. There was probably over 300 people there, so that was really, really interesting.
There's another hui coming up next week.
And there's a follow-up hui coming up. I attended the mana whenua Kawhia and Aotea concept plan hui, which is, I must say, is awesome work, Ross. Lots and lots of feedback from the whānau how well it's going, and just mihi to you that the patience that you are having with them is well received. So ngā mihi. Attended the Oxbow development out at Ōtorohanga Marae, and that was quite interesting too. So we had Tēnei Hene Henui, Tama Blackburn turn up, and Tēnei Hene Henui is quite interested in how they can support that Oxbow, but a very interesting concept because there's lots of Oxbows up our Waipa River. Attended a Taunui Waka Kai Kaunihira collective hui in Hamilton, and that's around the, getting some collective messages around te tiriti o Waitangi within Māori seats, within councils a Taunui Waka. So that was really cool. Had our hui and did some mahi with Greg Timms, he's a lovely man. Attended a Te Maruata troubleshooting hui via Zoom. So how can we best support our capacity of Māori within councils motu nei, so Aotearoa nei. Attended the grants and awards creative communities hui with Rodney, and that was really nice to be able to give some puti away. Had lots and lots of, not take it off them, had lots and lots of really praised feedback around what a good job we've done with giving them some putia. Then had a hui with one of the people that sit on the grants and awards committee, and she was an interesting lady. Part of the hui that I attended in Tikuiti, we did a follow-up in Waitomo with some of the councillors from Waitomo District Council, and I think as a collaborative framework, we could actually support each other. And some really good common goals coming out of that hui, which will be shared at the next hui. Went to a workshop around the electoral commissioning electoral rolls in Hamilton, and how we again get a collective message out to our whānau to switch roles, or what's the benefit of being on a Māori role, and how we do that, and collectively looking at how we can get them into kura, particularly in Aotearoa, to educate our tauira on the roles, and a little bit about what government does and what local government does. So that was really neat. Did the workshop with Peter Skilton, so that was really cool. I didn't realise the district plan was running out, and just some of the mahi that goes in behind that, so that was really neat. Went and attended the raising of the Matariki flags that was designed by Aihe Tākarei for Waitomo District Council. Matariki flags that will be hanging in the main street for the duration of Matariki. Amazing flags, beautiful. And then also attended the forum up at the Marae with Tama Pōtaka and with Maximum, and then stayed on to have a bit of a listen to their interpretation of Māori wards in the Waitomo District area, which was interesting. Went to a hui at Kāwhia, Te Kauri Lodge, and met a group by the name of Tiakina Kauri. So they are an organisation that sit under the biosecurity of Aotearoa, and it's got to do with saving kauri within Aotearoa. So, but some really good stuff around how mana whenua, iwi entities, hapu, whānau, marae can get involved in some of that stuff around our well-being within our communities, which I believe council has a huge part to play. So that was really cool. I logged on to the LGNZ candidate debate for presidency for LGNZ. That was really interesting. I don't know if I like Sam or Dan, so I didn't like Neil. I know that much. Sorry. just my own thing. But yeah, and somewhere in there, in there, I have one of my, third child turning 21 this weekend. So one more to go and we'll be done and dusted. Kia ora.
Councillor Willison.
think I'm copying my namesake. I'm Fat Zero, so sorry.
Councillor Williams.
Relatively quiet. We just had the ODB breakfast, which a colleague here was one of the keynote speakers. And then that same day we headed down to Te Kuiti on the bus that, well, they called it a relaunch, but with the branding now that there's branding on the side of the bus, and you might have seen that in the paper. And I hope we can encourage not just educate, like school and like tertiary education people to use it, but young employees that are working out of the district that could make good use of it as well. And yeah, it's really great to hear the buzz coming out of the Kāwhia Community Hall. We rocked up there for the consultation, the community consultation, and civil defence yesterday. We'll hear more about that in due course. Oh, except for confirming Nadia's appointment.
Thank you. Councillor Dow.
Haven't been up to too much, but I've been to the guest speaker at the Development Board breakfast, talking about social media and creative communities. And then, last week I went to Hamilton to the Regional Transport Committee meeting. Interesting there that the Waka Kotahi said whilst they had State Highway 31 closed, they did a full survey of the rest of the road and they don't think there's anywhere more vulnerable that's going to slip away, so I guess that's a positive. Well, yeah, I guess you can never tell the weather. The interesting thing was they showed us weather maps from the roading expert point of view, and if it doesn't rain, well, this was last week, if it doesn't rain again until the end of January, we'll still have more rain this year than what we normally get in a full year. So, and I think it will still rain. So, yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Councillor Hughes.
That'd be me. Hello. 25th of May, I attended the bus tour with Deputy Mayor Williams. We went, didn't get off to a very auspicious start with the bus running late. So we were, and I had to kick somebody out of the bus stop who was parked in there, so that didn't help too much. But it was a great morning, and lots of people got up and said a few words, including Deputy Mayor Williams, but yours was by far the best speech, I'm sure, because you brought a bit of your personal, it made it a little more personal due to the fact you're talking about how you used to use the bus service in your early working career. So that was quite cool. 31st of May, CU review meeting. I had a OCB meeting on the 6th of June. And then the 7th was also the district plan workshop. Just a little side note, I went to the police station yesterday sort of with a councillor cap on to a certain degree, as well as for personal reasons, and there was a bit of vandalism in town Sunday last week, previous Sunday, where windows were kicked in, bonnets were jumped on at the Nissan dealership down the road there. Display cases in the Hillary walkway were destroyed, 3 of them, and the costs to, as well as my own commercial property, was targeted. Some of the costs were, I've heard of that the Hillary walkway repairs is something along the lines of $1,700. Personally, mine was $1,500. I'm not too sure of the others, but so I went to the police station yesterday just to get a rundown on what was happening. But we really need to nip this sort of stuff in the bud. It's just not. We don't need this in our town. So it was very disappointing that this has happened, and it comes at a cost to everybody, not just. So hopefully the police can get onto that. Yvonne Meta is organising a meeting on Thursday, which I will attend. I think it's sort of to try and get the young people involved there and the people who have been affected by this, so we can have a bit of a hui on that and just see if we can find a way forward to try and prevent similar things happening in the future. So there we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, 25th of May I came into a Housing Committee meeting. The 26th of May was a Te Taio Kawhia meeting. So just to let you know that there's been a committee formed there. So they now have President, Secretary, Treasurer and committee members, and they're gaining some traction. They had a pamphlet which was circulated at the drop-in session on the 3rd of June at the hall, which was well received, I understand. So that was good, and they're in the process of making a submission to Council's Kawhia Aotea concept plan along the to do with the foreshore around to the hot springs. 1st of June was the Kawhia Community Board meeting. Just prior to that, I went along and had a chat to Annette and Heather, who were at the library, and what they've done at the library there looks really neat, and good shelving and plenty of room to move around. I think there's an issue potentially there with lighting. I think that was raised. The lighting's a bit dim, so whether we can get some an additional light or two in there. I think Jeff Good might have picked up on that one as well. Just something to think about. The 3rd of June was the annual general meeting of the Aotea Ratepayers Society, and went along to that. That was it's always a good meeting to go to. They're a good bunch of people out there. And following on from that was the drop-in session at Kawhia that we've talked to. I agree with Annette, there was a really good vibe there that day, and there was just heaps of people, and I don't envy Ross and his team having to try and piece together all of those post-it notes to try and, but I'm sure that there was some really good stuff that came out of that, so well worth the effort, and thanks to Ross and his team for the way in which that was run. That was excellent. 7th of June was the elected members workshop, where we had Peter Skelton and Andrew talking about the district plan and so on. And there's been one or two discussion points come out of that around forestry, which I'm not going to belabor the point now, but I think probably at some stage we'll probably need to talk about those. On the 15th of June, there was another housing committee meeting. We had a Zoom meeting. It was only a short one. It's really just to confirm that tomorrow morning at 7:30 at St David's, around at St David's, there's a session. The housing committee are making a presentation around there. I think it was pretty widely advertised, and people are invited to come along to that. And also there's a community session at 5:30 tomorrow as well, for those who can't make the 7:30 one. So I'm coming in for the early one, and but I won't be hanging around all day for the 5:30 one. So I hope to see a few of you there, and there's some speakers that'll be just talking about where the committee is currently at with housing. Yes, 19th yesterday, I did eventually get into that local government Zoom meeting, yeah, three interesting characters standing there for presidency. Actually, picking up on what Jamie said, to be honest with you, Sam was the only one that's actually made contact, and whether that's worth a brownie point or two, I'm not sure, but he certainly seemed to be a very enthusiastic young man. So that'll be an interesting election. Just as a matter of process, do we agree as a council on who we vote for and give that vote to Max, or how does it work? Yeah.
I've asked His Worship to provide some guidance on this.
Absolutely. Yeah, probably to be fair to the other two, they have contacted to try and see if we can get a Zoom meeting together, which is something, if you are interested in listening to them or having a one-on-one, that is available with both Neil and Dan. Dan. Yeah. So that possibility is there, and obviously again with Sam as well, that that's what you require. In terms of voting, obviously it comes down to a consensus. Historically, it's just been me making a decision down there at the annual general meeting, but I think there's a strong sway one way or another, and probably be out of this forum, we can sit down and have a discuss about the pros and cons of each of them. Yeah, and come up with a consensus. I mean, that would be my ideal. Everybody around this table is making a decision as to who's going to lead local government going forward.
Okay, thanks, Max. Just some prior notices. This Saturday is the annual general meeting of the sports club in Kāwhia. Pardon? Being held in the hall. Just as they've already elected their committee. The nominations were done as per constitution, so all of the nominations were received, and Dave Walsh is the new president, and Gordon, his brother, is the vice president, and Annette Gain is the treasurer, and Jude Johnson is the secretary, just so that you're aware. So that'll be, that's on 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, so if you want to rock along and have a bit of fun, it could be interesting. Also, just for those who perhaps are not aware, the Sands of Kāwhia Hotel has actually opened, hooray, and has been trading. We've been down a couple of times down there. The one night that we did go down there, it was chock-a-block. They were turning people away at the door. So the only criticism, I guess, was that the kitchen people need to perhaps get their act together. The meals were just too slow. You're waiting an hour and a half to 2 hours for a meal. It's just not on. So they need to get that one sorted pretty quickly. But other than that, the meal was fine, and there was a lot of strangers in town that night. Yeah, a lot of strangers around, and in fact, some of them were actually staying in the hotel. The people I heard over there were saying, "I just chose that room through to room 5 or whatever it was." So they were obviously staying in the house, which is good. So the accommodation's being used as well, which is a good start for them. We're still having an ongoing issue with the police out there. Jono is still on ACC, and I was talking to his wife last night, and it could be quite a long-term thing. We're relying on relief staff coming out from Hamilton or wherever they're coming from. The guy that's coming out at the moment, Richard, is very good, but I understand he's only temporary anyway. He's not permanent. And of course the locals, it doesn't take them long to figure out when the policeman comes into town in the morning and when he buzzes off again in the afternoon. During the day it's fine, it's after he leaves town that the troubles generally start. So I'm not too sure what the solution is there. I gather that they can't really move Jono out because there's some contractual issues surrounding that, and they can't move another policeman in because he's occupying the house. So I'm not too sure. It's just, the whole thing's just a bit of a mess, really. But the downside is that Kāwhia is not getting policed as it should be. And the only other thing I would say is for Saturday is go Chiefs. Yeah. Let's beat those Crusaders.
Thank you, absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Worship.
Moving
Your
on.
Worship, I'll just chuck something in there on the Sands. Just informally talking with one of the shakers and the movers that are responsible for having that building built and finished and stuff. Just a big thank you. They acknowledged the Ōtorohanga Council for all the work and the support that they received from the council to get their licence across the line. So I thought that maybe something worth saying. It was from Tom Moki. Just having a coffee. It was
Did you hear that, Andrew?
very, very pleased with the support that came from the council.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Councillor. Right, cool. That's nice to acknowledge. Tanya, over to you for the resolutions register.
I've done it this week. We got all prepped at leadership team meeting. Okay, so nearly all of them are coming off the register. They've been done. Easy peasy. The one that isn't is the road naming policy, which we're going to brief you on our policy work in the 4th of July workshop, so you'll get an update then. And then we've got the lease that's being drawn up by a solicitor for the support house out of that action. And the rest of them have been done.
Awesome, thank you. Right, we'll move back to our agenda again, which is onto the public excluded.
We move the very important recommendation around the resolution that the Ōtorohanga District Council confirm the removal of resolutions C 18, 28, 56, 57, 58 from the register.
I'll move that. Second, Councillor Williams, all in favour? Yes. Thank you, Tanya. Okay, moving on to public excluded, I again move that the public be excluded from this part of the meeting. Secondly, Councillor Dow, in favour? Very good. Great.